Welcome, everybody. This is Danny and Karl with Get Wisdom, and we're going to continue with our channeling series. And today we're going to continue with a special part of that channeling series, which is of your questions for Creator. So now on the Get Wisdom website, you can actually enter your questions for Creator, and these are we're soliciting questions for wider interest. Something that has not been asked yet, and addresses some of the things that maybe you felt haven't been quite dealt with yet on the voluminous amount of information that's already there, whether it be on the channeling series or on the Q&A section on the website, and on this series that we've done within the channeling series, the viewer questions for Creator. So today we have 8 questions, and they're really good ones, and they've been collected up since since we started, because we haven't, some of these that were deposited with us early on before even Get Wisdom started. So we have quite a collection now of viewer questions, and we select some of the ones that we think are going to be more interesting for our audience, and so that's what we're going to do today. So with that, Karl, thanks for joining us, and maybe you could give us a little bit of an introduction on what we've been doing with this particular part of the series.
Sure, Danny. Thank you, and thanks to all of you who are watching this. You're the lucky few who are uncorrupted and on a positive track, at least staying open to possibilities and staying free from the grip of the dark forces that really have most people under their thrall. Most people are being constrained, dimmed down, dumbed down, complacent, not thinking there's anything wrong, and just seeing the world as usual and not concerned about what could happen tomorrow. And those of you open to new ideas and the possibility that there's more going on are the ones who can make a change, because you're the only ones in a position to ask for help, meaningful help. And I don't mean human help, and I don't mean extraterrestrial help. I mean divine help, because that's what we've been told over and over and over again is critical to getting this done. So I'm not giving anything away. We've been harping on that for quite some time, but it's a very important message. Yeah. It will only happen if you ask. It's not enough for me to ask. It's not enough for Denny to ask. It's a bigger contest than 2 votes can determine. That's what this is about. It's kind of like voting. Who will vote for the future of humanity and who will stay home and not participate? Yeah. And then the karmic destiny will play out accordingly. So our desire to connect with Creator is to contribute to this enterprise of learning and helping the process of enlightenment, because it's starting here right now among us, helping us to have a greater reach, a greater awareness, and a desire for more, and a desire for upliftment, and to see a glorious new future unfold. Very few of us are happy totally with the world, the way things are. And even being a human being, it's difficult, it's challenging. And if nothing else, the limits of a physical body are a continuing source of frustration and concern for so many people. Not only are we fragile, I mean, we can't even stay out in the sun for very long, in our own world, and then let alone extremes of temperature that are present in most areas of the planet. The need for fresh water, and that's a dwindling resource. And on and on and on, providing food and clothing and shelter and from the elements and so forth. So it's a challenge just to get along and get by, let alone become really enlightened and regain a kind of light being level of functionality. And we're told that's where we're headed. We're going to be light beings again in the new mode we take on when we finally have an ascension of humanity. But that hasn't happened yet. And the reason it hasn't is we're still in learning mode and we haven't graduated. And that will only happen when we heal our way to that level, to that point, when we're really road ready to move up to greater awareness and greater capability, what's holding us back is outside manipulation. So a lot of our answers are going to be related to that. It's because it's the number one problem. And all the human problems we think of from a human level are related in some way to what these interlopers are doing to us and constraining us and so on. So the questions for Creator are quite important because each person needs to develop their understanding of things in order to be informed, in order for their intention to be the most powerful it can be. If you just watch an interview in this series and think, well, these guys might be onto something, I'll ask, Creator to help and I'll put my vote in. So Creator, help these guys, help us, thanks, and then, then I'm off to watch TV or do whatever it is I do and when I'm relaxing and so on. And if you don't think about it any longer, your vote will be in the hopper. But your vote will be enacted in proportion to your intention that's behind it. Is it heartfelt? Is it strong? Is it a pure and undivided intention and having mixed motives going on? Are you here mostly serving your own ego, your own selfish interests, or do you have a genuine concern for others? And that will go into the intention. If you're this tiny, small, selfish person, you have a tiny, small, selfish intention for wanting the betterment of humanity. That's who you are in the moment. It's not the totality of your being and your soul. You're much bigger than that. And we're all bigger than our current selves. And some are more aware of it than others. And it's painful to be out in public, as I am right now, with my warts and all that. And I'm well aware of my limitations, up to a point, of course, but it all is important and it all counts. So I'm not trying to discourage anyone from weighing in. I'm only pointing out that the reason it's so varied and so scattered and so incomplete is because so many people have been sidelined and repressed.
Yeah.
And they do it to themselves.
Yeah. And part of what we're talking about or pointing towards is that in terms of the solution, there's a quorum that's required. So the purpose of doing this is to reach out and engage more people with the idea that the divine assistant is going to be the solution. But it just can't be a handful of people doing that. It's got to be a sizable percentage of the existing population. And
yes.
One of the things that we addressed not too long ago on the GetWisdom website was in one of the forums that we have there was this idea of how are we doing? How are we making an impact? And so I just decided to run some numbers. I didn't run it all the way out, but there's allegedly 7 billion people, on the planet right now, something like that. And a lot of those figures come from the CIA of all places. This collection of the data like that, and supposedly 53 million people die every year on the planet. And then of those 53 million, about a third of them don't successfully transition to become earthbound spirits. So every year, there's 18 million people that become lost souls on the planet. And getting those souls back to the light is part of the Lightworker Healing Protocol. It's part of the prayer work that needs to be done in order to turn all this around. So it kind of gives us an idea, even with the improvements to the prayer work that's being taught through GetWisdom, we have a long ways to go. That's a lot of people. So even with a lot of people doing that work, it's a lot of work to be done, even for a lot of people. And so that kind of re-emphasizes this idea of the divine realm's help. It really is needed. Once you understand the problem, you can see why, the appeal for the divine help is serious. It's not just some little adjunct, some little like, oh, add this on here and it'll help. It is the difference.
Well, and this is the most important thing we can do with our lives. We've been told this directly. We've been told this to us by Creator and by a number of light beings we've interviewed. It's why we're here. The light beings looking down on us at this moment see the whole landscape. They see the corruption. They see the dark spirits in 90% of people. They see how politicians are maneuvered like chess pieces and under control of mind manipulation to get them to do and not do the things they were elected to accomplish. And that's why we have inertia and gridlock and so much dissension and political infighting. And it all contributes to the malaise and the self negativity and the cynicism, and then the complacency in the end, because who can deal with all this? It's just too big, it's too corrupt, and so forth. But we've got to get beyond that.
Yeah.
So they're looking down and they're seeing the thousands and thousands of extraterrestrial missions going on every day, abducting people, manipulating them, implanting them with portals and various forms of implants to do manipulation of them physically, mentally, emotionally, and to suppress spirituality. So it's an open book. And we knew this before we came down. And then we were born as this infant with no memory, to parents who were disconnected from their origins, have little awareness. And if they're lucky, they have a family connection to spirituality in some way or another, through religion or just through a desire to be a good citizen and a good person, and to have values and morals and so on. But we're coming from behind, and it's these millennia of manipulation to take those refinements away from us and make us more and more savage. And it's worked again and again and again through history. We've come into a mode where we're better than before, perhaps, in terms of civility and wanting the betterment of other people and not just ourselves in a selfish way. But that is always at risk, and it's a delicate thing, to be willing to serve others in addition to our own nation state and our own community and our family and friends and so on. So we need to wake up. We need to have that same level of knowledge and insight that the light can see, and we can't, at least directly. So we're here to try to fill in the gap, because we can reach beyond the veil and interact directly with Creator. And that's a precious, precious resource, unfortunately. And it's very sad, because very, very few channelers are reaching divine level targets, even though they believe they are. They are too complacent themselves. They're too trusting. They can't imagine this level of darkness being able to push the divine aside and step in as imposters and manipulators.
Right.
But the reason it happens is the interlopers don't believe in the Almighty. They don't believe that there's a higher power. They think they are the higher power. So they have no compunction to just jump in and pretend to be an archangel or God or whomever.
Right.
And because of free will and free agency, the divine realm has to allow that. That's the setup. That is the environment we inherited and are part of. It's on our heads and our burden to correct this. It's the challenge for us. It's sort of the graduation exercise.
The last few chess moves.
That's right. It's our proof of our capability that awaits us, whether we can wake up in time, take the bull by the horns and see to this through reconnecting to the divine primarily, because
Right.
that's what it's going to take.
Right.
We don't have the power to fend this off, to throw off our chains, and we have chains. We're really,
Right.
herded into little clusters and manipulated all day long, and
Yeah.
constrained.
And all the
million
other
ways.
alternatives that people are drawn to with that intention, like we see it in politics, we see it in religion, we see it in different ET scenarios, like some kind of combination of benevolent ETs and human white hats that are going to run in and save the day, or no offense to our Christian friends, but like the second coming of Jesus, and someone's going to come in and clean everything up for us, and we can be really in observers mode, and that's part of the subterfuge that is being given to us by the usual suspects, which puts us in a place of complacency, or with an idea that there's really nothing to be done personally, by us. That this will take care of itself. It's a natural evolution of humans to just, be transformed out of the mess that they've helped to create through some divine agency that is, presenting itself as politics, or as, the second coming of Jesus, or whatever. I mean, there's a bunch of different narratives out there. Basically, I call it the savior programming, which is a big part of human nature, that the guy's going to come riding up on the steed and untie the maiden from the railway lines, at the 11th hour, and all was well because the savior showed up,
Yes.
And what we're proposing, I think what we're proposing at Get Wisdom is a really different formula. It's about a partnership. It's about us holding up our end of the bargain through, making a decision to side with Creator, and in doing so, asking for Creator's help, asking for the divine realm's help. Yeah.
Yeah, and the key thing that I always like to emphasize is the problem isn't with us. It's not that people are so awful or what they're doing so awful. It's just that we're acting through unawareness and an ignorance of the realities of what's truly going on.
Yeah.
And that can change everything. And that's why information is so valuable, because everyone's been misled. Religions have been corrupted to darken their message, and it turns a lot of people off. And that's why people have drifted away.
Right.
Not because God and Allah are not real.
Yeah.
It's because there were things that corrupted the church or the religions themselves, and people sense intuitively, this doesn't really sit with me, and they're right.
Yeah.
But you don't have to throw the entirety of it away, and It's true across the board.
Right.
So the substitutes that have come along are largely disinformation campaigns. And the entirety of the New Age movement is a good example of this. In the vacuum created by growing secularism, the spiritual communities turn to New Age thinking and approaches that are well-intentioned, and they sound good, and they appeal to us as spiritual beings. But they're limited because they work strictly from the human level. Yeah, and that's not going to be enough.
And a good example is the latest channeling session that we did with Carla Ruckert, who channeled the Law of One material, which we found out, was another manipulation and a ruse, perpetrated on, a sizable portion of the New Age community, follows that now, probably not knowing what actually happened to Carla in that instance.
Yeah. And this is the hard, bitter pill to swallow for everyone. I don't like it myself.
Yeah.
But it's the truth that unless people are aware of and dealing with the issue of interlopers in the form of dark spirits that can attach and manipulate us within ourselves, and extraterrestrials who have been infested as well and are preying on us and manipulating us from behind the scenes also. If you're not dealing with that, you're not getting the whole message.
Right.
And it's either because you're not open to it or aware of it and asking for it. And so a divine source cannot tell you because that's human responsibility to
Right.
develop that awareness. Or someone's getting information from a source that doesn't want you to know. So they may be giving you divine messages that are uplifting and in divine alignment as far as they go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the whole story, and it's not the most urgent thing you need to know right now. I mean, we all pretty much know we should be nice to one another and not be criminals in how we behave. But what if there are criminals among us running things? And we just think all it needs is to make nice and join little groups to meditate and ask for, look forward to enlightenment and wait for the saviors and wait for the white hat ETs or whatever the story is.
Yeah.
We're missing the boat.
Yeah.
And the boat is filled with dark beings who want to harm us.
Right. And have been doing so for many, many thousands of years.
Right.
And we've been, the blame lies elsewhere in many respects for a lot of the narrative, the stories that we hear. It's not ET interlopers that have caused the pain and suffering of humanity for all these years. It was Hitler, it was Pol Pot, it was Stalin. These evil people that rise to power in and of themselves by their own volition. Well, we found out that's not the case. There's a different story, and that's the main reason we do these channeling series, is so that we can learn a more accurate story, the causes of things, rather than just looking at symptoms and then trying to derive causes out of the symptoms, which are pointing us in the wrong direction. Okay.
Well, and just one more thing.
Yeah.
This scenario I have come to see and believe is the best fit for all the available data.
Yeah.
It really is, because it explains every aspect of the weirdness and the craziness and how things can be so working at cross purposes and incomplete, in spite of all the effort that we put in over the centuries to improve the world and improve ourselves, and hardly gone anywhere.
Right.
And we think because we have technology, it's a whole new ballgame. But that's just surface.
Yeah.
We had technologies in older areas as well, the sailing vessel and weapons that lasted and were really quite powerful and strong when we could make things out of steel and shields out of metal and so on. But this is just another, iteration. It's Generation X. That
variations on a theme.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's not containing anything that has true value in terms of wisdom.
Right. Right. Okay. So we've set the stage here, and like I say, I got 8 questions, so we'll have a pretty long session here with 8 questions. So let's go ahead and get started.
All right. So I will connect to Creator of all that is, and I do this in a special way to set up safety around the work because I want it to be authentic and I want it to be kept safe and protected from any kind of interference. This is what one needs to do with any sort of intuitive outreach, whether it's just meditation. And of course, in prayer, you automatically are doing that. And it is protected because it's a divine communication you are seeking in your outreach, and Creator will bestow that on your behalf. But if you're going out to do any other purpose, you're on your own unless you ask for divine support and help. So I just, I hate to be a broken record, but it's so very important that one does that. So I will connect, and then Creator will announce its presence.
Okay.
This is Creator speaking.
Thank you for joining us. How can karma exist in a free will universe? Several shamanic teachers have said that karma is only a teaching and that we can break bonds of association using intentional revocations.
It is quite true that karma is a teaching. It is a great teacher. It is the ultimate teacher because it is always ongoing, always working, always doing what it is designed to give lessons to everyone. And no one can escape it. So it is the most thorough, the most powerful, and the most comprehensive teacher in existence because the entire universe is the classroom and it reaches every pupil. But it is not true that one can simply dictate to karma, alter it at will or on command. It is true karma can be healed with respect to an individual's obligations and karmic debt accumulated through one's actions to create an imbalance in something. This is what triggers karma to begin interacting and to eventually visit each and every human being in proportion to their actions, whether good or for ill. The good deeds and acts of loving kindness will be rewarded because they will return to the person much as a mirror returns their reflection. If they are smiling, if they are loving, if they are reaching out and helping others less fortunate, if they are giving encouragement and upliftment, giving of themselves, helping the young, raising young of their own, being a loving spouse, a true friend, a loyal companion, a stalwart compatriot in an enterprise or an undertaking for the betterment of others. All such activities go in a kind of plus column with respect to putting love into the world and thereby the universe. These acts will be rewarded with further gains, further improvements, personal rewards and benefits as well that will be amplified because the helping of another not only uplifts the self in the moment by exercising the flow of love and encouraging greater love to come in to refill the quota, it also will come back to the originator, amplified by the benefits to all who are touched by the act of loving kindness. The same, unfortunately, for all too many, is true of the negative actions that are undertaken through ignorance, through unawareness, through a deliberate choice to cause harm because of ill will, a desire for revenge, the consequence of inner bitterness and resentment that is targeted towards someone in particular, or what happens in a general dislike of a difference among individuals through organizations, membership in societies, political activities, and then other levels of interplay where people judge one another based on perceived neglect, disregard, or unfair treatment. And if there are labels associated, become sources of bias and eventually prejudice if reinforced. And those dark perspectives will have a karmic consequence as they are enacted in the world. This comes back as a quite painful consequence And it too is amplified in proportion to all of the secondary, tertiary, quaternary consequences as they spread outward from each victim of someone's disregard of this principle, that love should be in the driver's seat and should be the motivation for all actions. And if that were so, the universe, and particularly the local environment of your world, would change instantly. This cannot happen through simple choice and a decision by the person to simply disavow any responsibility to one's karma and decree that it be ended. This only happens through a change of heart, a change within, an awareness of one's wrongdoing, and a kind of reckoning, along with an energetic reassignment within all that is on record that has transpired. Unless that energetic signature is healed, it will be the reference point for what happens to the person. You cannot decree this out of existence. You cannot alter it with your thoughts alone. There must be a true interplay with what has happened in your world at your doing, and a reworking of the intention and the interaction that set things in motion in such a way as to recall the energies by repurposing them with an overlay that is in effect a kind of antidote, a healing intention that will change the energies on file. That is a healing, and healing does not happen by decree. It is a process and an interplay to bring in wisdom backed by loving energy to right the wrongs of the past. So these would-be teachers are simply partly right and partly wrong.
Okay, thank you. In a previous channeling session, you said that we may become creators of our own universe someday. So does this mean that you were in our place in the past? And if so, as what creatures were you incarnating?
In a sense, we are still in that mode as a creator within the universe you know of and experience directly through your created being. But we were not animals. We were not in a position as you are in the physical. We conceived of this as a state of being and have explored it quite extensively through the eons of time and in other iterations of the universe as well. So we are truly a God-level being, and this has been our lineage all along. We desire to see that expand in new ways, with new undertakings, new iterations that arise from a kind of learning and growth process to explore possibilities that in turn cause an expansion within the thinking and the creative set of opportunities that become first envisioned and then sought out and implemented directly through having creative force at one's disposal. And this is the gift bestowed to the divine human, to be an offshoot directly of our energy and our intelligence, to first go through a conditioning phase, to become independent, and to learn from that independence the nature of mistakes and successes, the good and the evil as well, the contrast of forces and energies that make up every state of being within everything energetically that is present as an extension of consciousness throughout the universe in all its realms, all its worlds, and all of its groups of organisms as they interact with one another and create consequences of all kinds. To be in a position of power and control as an authority able to impinge on the level of a world, let alone groups of worlds, and then groups within groups of worlds, and multiple dimensions within a universe of creation, is far beyond your reach in present form. We are envisioning a destiny that begins to approach what we do as creators, but imparted by you as the initiator through your desire to engage and explore. This will happen through the wisdom you gain all the way along and is a growth process. You are still in the beginning level, and that is only because you have been interfered with. And this was in itself a kind of blessing, because the sooner you engage with the potential for this to happen, the sooner you learn its lessons. And there is less at stake than would be so if you were already in a quite advanced state of being and then had this problem loom on your watch, so to speak, and not having had the experience of contending with it and fully understanding its consequences and impact on all levels of existence, would have quite a challenge on your hands to deal with it in a way that it would not, in effect, spoil the party altogether and undermine and, in effect, destroy your handiwork. This is what we are going through as the creator of worlds, you know of and experience in being a part. It is not a small problem. It is within our ability to handle, but we wish to do it in a way that benefits you in the greatest possible fashion. This is why it is on your list of things to do and not ours directly. This will happen through a partnership, but it is part of your learning and your challenge to bring this forth. So this is an example of where you are headed, to be experienced with and fully capable of dealing with such extremes of contrast that will make you truly flourish as a divine level being. And so this is the greatest of gifts we can give to anything or anyone, the possibility to have divine power and to have independence and free will for exercising it and expressing your own inner being and constitution, the makeup of your individual souls. We wish you well in this undertaking. It is a blessed and sacred trust we place within you. And this is something we do not magnify, because this will inevitably be seen as a layer of even greater burden, perhaps, than the physical contest underway among you and your adversaries. But this is the loving reality of your origin. And this is wondrous indeed, and beyond words in its implications, in the glorious future it represents for you. So we can only point you upward. And you, in your question, are in a sense looking backward. And that is understandable because that is your frame of reference at the present moment. But it is because you are in physical form and not your light being origin that you still see this perspective and this differentiation in small terms and not large ones. We are simply pointing out here that the vastness of the potential and your future cannot be encompassed by any question coming from a human being in the physical. That is not a bad thing and is not a judgment nor criticism. It is an enticement and intended to engage and encourage your delight and curiosity about what is to come. It is a glorious future beyond your comprehension.
Okay, thank you. This is very much a related question, and in some ways you've answered it, but I think I'm going to go ahead and ask it anyway. If we are immortal souls just living for a short while in these human bodies and then going back to source, potentially to reincarnate anywhere else we choose, why is it so important to prevail in this fight down here? If the bad ETs win and humans are decimated or destroyed, would that not just mean that our souls no longer have the choice to come here, but would go elsewhere? In other words, why does this matter?